His Divine Grace is Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. I thought a nice verse to start from, because I've been reading from Canto 1, Chapter 2. Just a continuation from where I left off. So this is 1, 2, 28, 29. It's on the screen, right? Vasudevi Bhagavate. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayamudhirayat.
Tato Jayamudhirayat.
Okay, so text 28. Vasudeve Para Veda.
Vasudeva Paraveda.
Vasudeva Paramaka.
Vasudeva Paramaka.
Vasudeva Para Yoga.
Vasudeva Parayoga.
Vasudeva Para Kriya.
Vasudeva Parakriya.
Vasudeva Param Jnanam.
Vasudeva Param Jnanam.
Vasudeva Param Tapaha.
Vasudeva Param Tapaha.
Vasudeva Paro Dharmo.
Vasudeva Paro Dharmo.
Vasudeva Paragatihi.
Vasudeva Paragatihi.
Translation. In the revealed scriptures, the ultimate object of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The purpose of performing sacrifice is to please Him. Yoga is for realizing Him. All fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by Him only. He is the supreme knowledge, and all severe austerities are performed to know Him. Religion or Dharma is rendering loving service unto Him. He is the supreme goal of life. No, the Vasudeva is the phrase used again and again. Prabhupada doesn't put it in the translation. It's Sri Krishna. Vasudeva means Sri Krishna. Purport. That Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is the only object of worship is confirmed in these two slokas. In the Vedic literature, there is the same objective, establishing one's relationship and ultimately reviving our lost loving service unto Him. That is the sum and substance of the Vedas. In the Bhagavad Gita, the same theory is confirmed by the Lord in His own words. Namely, the ultimate purpose of the Vedas is to know Him only. All the revealed scriptures are prepared by the Lord through His incarnation in the body of Srila Vyasadeva, just to remind the fallen souls conditioned by material nature of Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. No demigod can award freedom from material bondage. That is the verdict of all the Vedic literatures. Impersonalists who have no information of the personality of Godhead minimize the omnipotency of the Supreme Lord and put Him on equal footing with all other living beings. And for this act, such impersonalists get freedom from material bondage only with great difficulty. They can surrender unto Him only after many, many births in the culture of transcendental knowledge. Paragraph. One may argue that the Vedic activities are based on sacrificial ceremonies. That is true. But all such sacrifices are also meant for realizing the truth about Vasudeva. Another name of Vasudeva is yajna, or sacrifice, and in the Bhagavad Gita it is clearly stated that all sacrifices and all activities are to be conducted for the satisfaction of yajna, or Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. This is the case also with the yoga systems. Yoga means to get in touch with the Supreme Lord. The process, however, includes several bodily features such as asana, dhyana, pranayama, and meditation. And all of them are meant for concentrating upon the localized aspect of Vasudeva, represented as Paramatma. Paramatma realization is but a partial realization of Vasudeva, and if one is successful in that attempt, one realizes Vasudeva in full. But if by ill luck, most yogis are stranded by the powers of mysticism and achieved through the bodily process, ill-fated yogis are given a chance in the next birth by being placed in the families of good, learned brahmanas, or in the families of rich merchants, in order to execute the unfinished task of Vasudeva realization. If they can easily realize Vasudeva by good association with saintly persons, if such fortunate brahmanas and sons of rich men properly utilize the chance, they can easily realize Vasudeva by good association with saintly persons. Unfortunately, such preferred persons are captivated again by material wealth and honor, and thus they practically forget the aim of life. Paragraph. It's a long purport. This is also so for the culture of knowledge. According to Bhagavad Gita, there are 18 items of culturing knowledge. Such culture of knowledge, by such culture of knowledge, one becomes gradually prideless, devoid of vanity, non-violent, forbearing, simple, and devoted to the great spiritual master, and self-realized, and self-controlled. By culture of knowledge, one becomes unattached to hearth and home and becomes conscious of the miseries due to death, birth, old age, and disease, and all culture of knowledge culminates in devotional service to the personality of Godhead Vasudeva. Therefore, Vasudeva is the ultimate aim of culturing all different branches of knowledge. Culture of knowledge leading one to the transcendental plane of meeting Vasudeva is real knowledge. Physical knowledge, in its various branches, is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita as ajnana, or the opposite of real knowledge. The ultimate aim of physical knowledge is to satisfy the senses, which means prolongation of the terms of material existence and thereby continuance of the threefold miseries. So, prolonging the miserable life of material existence is nescience. But the same physical knowledge leading to the way of spiritual understanding helps one to end the miserable life of physical existence and to begin the life of spiritual existence on the plane of Vasudeva. Paragraph. The same applies to all kinds of austerities. Tapasya means voluntary acceptance of bodily pains to achieve some higher end of life. Ravana and Hiranyakashipu underwent severe types of bodily torture to achieve the end of sense gratification. Sometimes modern politicians also undergo severe types of austerities to achieve some political end. This is not actually tapasya. One should accept voluntary bodily inconveniences for the sake of knowing Vasudeva, because that is the way of real austerities. Otherwise, all forms of austerities are classified as modes of passion and ignorance. Passion and ignorance cannot end the miseries of life. Only the mode of goodness can mitigate the threefold miseries of life. Vasudeva and Devaki, the so-called mother and father of Lord Krishna, underwent penances to get Vasudeva as their son. Lord Sri Krishna is the father of all living beings. Bhagavad Gita 14:4. Therefore, he is the original living being of all other living beings. He is the original eternal enjoyer amongst all other enjoyers. Therefore, no one can be his begetting father, as the ignorant may think. Lord Sri Krishna agreed to become the son of Vasudeva and Devaki upon being pleased with their severe austerities. Therefore, if any austerities have to be done, they must be done to achieve the end of knowledge, Vasudeva. Then another long paragraph that's the conclusion of this purport. Vasudeva is the original personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. As explained before, the original personality of Godhead expands himself by innumerable forms. Such expansion of forms is made possible by his various energies. His energies are also multifarious, and his internal energies are superior and external energies inferior in quality. They are explained in the Bhagavad Gita 7:4-6 as the para and the apara prakritis. So, his expansions of various forms, which take place via the internal energies, are spiritual forms, whereas expansions which take place via the external energies are inferior forms. The living entities are also his expansions. The living entities who are expanded by his internal potency are eternally liberated persons, whereas those who are expanded in terms of the material energies are eternally conditioned souls. Therefore, all culture of knowledge, austerities, sacrifice, and activities should be aimed at changing the quality of the influence that is acting upon us. For the present, we are all being controlled by the external energy of the Lord, and just to change the quality of the influence, we must endeavor to cultivate spiritual knowledge. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that those who are Mahatmas, or those whose minds have been so broadened as to be engaged in the service of Lord Krishna, are under the influence of the internal potency. And the effects is that such broad-minded living beings are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord without deviation. That should be the aim of life. And that is the verdict of all Vedic literatures. No one should bother himself with fruitive activities or dry speculation. Dry speculation about transcendental knowledge. Everyone should at once engage himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. No one should worship different demigods who work as different hands of the Lord for creation, maintenance, or destruction of the material world. There are innumerable powerful demigods who look over the external management of the material world. They are all different assisting hands of Lord Vasudeva. Even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma are included in the list of demigods. But Lord Vishnu or Vasudeva is always transcendently situated, even though he accepts the qualities of goodness in the material world, he is still transcendental to all the material modes. The following example will clear that matter more explicitly. In the prison house, there are the prisoners and the managers of the prison house. Both the managers and the prisons are bound by the laws of the king. But even though the king sometimes comes in the prison, he is not bound by the laws of the prison house. The king is therefore always transcendental to the laws of the prison house, as the Lord is always transcendental to the laws of the material world. Well, as I was reading, I was thinking, Prabhupada is very accurately giving a panorama of different references from different sources within our texts to stitch together, a commentary on the verse. Because the word Vasudeva is used in each line, it obviously draws one's attention to that. That seems to be important. He seems to be important, which is true. And then the importance is this and that and the other and the other and the other and the other and whatever it is, because all of these items are Vedic. I mean, in their original sense, they're Vedic. There may be deviations by the influence of material energy, and thus they look to be material because some people do these things for material purposes. But the original purpose, the Vedic purpose, is to know Krishna, as stated in the purport. Vedayascha Sayarvair Aham Eva Vedyo, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. The purpose of the Vedas is to know Krishna. And to know Krishna may be this, that, or the other. And there may be more direct or less direct or quite indirect. But the purpose of even the indirect is the same. And indirect because some persons aren't prepared for direct. It's not in this purport here, but Prabhupada would say, supposing somebody asks an individual, "My dear sir, can you touch your nose?" Mm-hmm. And there's the direct, and then there's the indirect. Arm wrapped around your head, and somehow you can maybe touch your nose. The mission is accomplished. Touch your nose. So the mission of the Vedas is to know Krishna. So there may be indirect methods, and indirect methods are very severe and prolonged, lifetimes. Bahunam jamanamante. Many janmas, many births. One may, is cultivating knowledge consistently, because it's easily to get distracted and deviated, but if one continues, it may that such a person may come to the position of surrender to Krishna. And that's very rare. Samahatma Sadurlabha. But that's one of the indirect cultivation of knowledge, indirect method. Part of the idea, an essential part of the idea of cultivation of knowledge is detachment, jnana vairagya. That is, detachment from what? Detachment from the temporary. And knowledge can enable one to discern the distinction between the eternal and the temporary. Including the misconception of self as the body or mind, or the emotions within the mind, or the coverings of the covering. One's nationality, or one's color, or one's gender, or one's covering. Temporary. And focusing instead on the eternal, Sat. That which is true, that which is enduring. So we belong to the Sat category, not to the Asat category. So in this way, slowly, after many lifetimes of being striving and being focused on Sat, one may come to the Supreme. Satchitananda Vigraha. Rare. Indirect method. Rare. And then there's more direct, the austerity method, the meditation method, and other methods that are more direct but not leading to the final conclusion of Bhagavan, like is mentioned in the purport. Dhyan, the process of meditation. Lots of people these days, it's fashionable. Meditation. Meditation on what? And if one doesn't have information, knowledge about the source of everything, then one's going to meditate on something that's not the source of everything. And you can, unlimited varieties of what that meditation might be. A candle, a spot, a mandala, the stars in the sky, or whatever, the sun, the moon. But what is that? Here's a nice, for example. This is a Jiva Goswami expression. When people are engaged in that kind of activity, what is it that they're doing? You take the example, persons that worship the Ganges with palmfuls of Ganges. Ganges doesn't need palmfuls of Ganges. Ganges is Ganges. But it's the rendering from that which is the source unto the source. From the source to the source. Or worship of the sun. Some persons do worship the sun. And how do they do? A flame. And offer a flame, a lamp to the sun. Where'd that flame come from? Where'd the fire of the flame come from? From the sun. Worshipping the sun with a little speck of the sun's energy. And similarly, any bhakti process is acknowledging Yad Karoshi, Yad Asnasi, Yad Jahosi, whatever you do that as an offering, as sacrifice unto me. Madhyaji, worship me. So that's bhakti. Whatever it is that you have access to or have propensity towards, you make that as an act of sacrifice unto the Supreme. And voila, the Supreme acknowledges and reciprocates. Because Krishna knows, Vasudeva knows that the intention. And exactly in alignment with their intention, there's reciprocation. And then through further purification, then that intention becomes more focused and more purified up to the point of pure devotion. And then even a little thing, a little speck, pure devotion, reciprocation comes. And the reciprocation comes in a way that's corresponding to the qualification, the adhikar of the worshipper. So we could, I don't know if it's the right thing to do, go through each of these 8 examples, an example and an example and an example. Now read the verse again. In the revealed scriptures, the ultimate object of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of God, had the purpose of performing sacrifice. So knowledge, sacrifice is to please him. Yoga is for realizing him. All fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by him only. He is supreme knowledge, and all severe austerities are performed to know him. The severe austerities program, that's an impersonal approach. Severe austerities is an impersonal approach. That is negation, definition by negation. Since involvement in material affairs is the pursuit of sense gratification, let me run the other direction. Meditation in the heat of the summer with fire all around. There's photographs of yogis doing that. Literally, the fire, it all, circle. They're just sitting in the middle of the circle in the heat of the summer. And, or the other direction in the winter. They go to the Himalayas, and in part of one of the presentations, there's this yogi, there's big ice, whatever you call it, floats, pieces of ice floating all around him. And there's his head with his beard floating on the surface of the water, and he's meditating like that. I mean, I don't know how healthy that is, but they like. And the part of the like is detachment from the senses, and if you detach from the senses, what's left? It's consciousness. And consciousness of what? So the mind, so directing is restricting and then directing when done properly. But towards what? What's the object? But if there isn't a personal conception, then it's an impersonal conception by default. So meditate on the impersonal. And there's some transcendental realization, no doubt. There's some transcendental realization if one, goes all the way and Krishna reciprocates and awakens Brahman, knowledge of Brahman. How could you do either of those two or the other austerities? Enter into freezing cold water, literally freezing cold water, and just meditate. Your mind would freak out. Most people. Or say it the other way, the heat, so etc., etc., etc. The depriving the senses or going the opposite direction of leaving the senses no scope for enjoyment, by deliberately making things so uncomfortable that if you don't have a transcendental shelter, you go nuts. You'll die. Won't be able to maintain sanity or stability or life. So the purpose of that austerity, that severe austerity, like Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport, Vasudeva and Devaki, they underwent austerity. But there was a purpose, and the purpose was reciprocated with. Demons, etc. Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. So the purpose of austerity, so going through that list, the purpose of anything, then you fill in the blank, you make it blank. And anything, the purpose of anything has one purpose. In the transcendental sense, to know Krishna. What's the big deal about knowing Krishna? Well, the illusory existence is now gone because it was illusory. So it appears to be, but it remains illusory in the final analysis when everything else is taken away. So that's the message. I think that's sufficient. He is the supreme goal of life. So tonight's verse, chapter 2, is something of a summary of everything else that follows. It's like fundamental and then expanded into everything else that comes. So taking this or that or the other strain or thread and then developing it into a history of this person, that person, or interactions between persons, illustrating the superiority of bhakti, the superiority of Krishna is the goal of everything. He's the purpose. And when everything that's not yet fully perfect becomes perfect, the target is Krishna. It becomes perfect because of the target, Krishna himself. Let's see if there's some discussion. Yes.
So, the word Vasudev, I've heard is Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class. The word Vasudev, I've heard is multiple meanings. So the ones I know is Vasudev means all pervading.
Yeah.
Vasudev means the son of Vasudev.
Mm-hmm.
Vasudev also means the pure consciousness. So are there other and one other meaning is the expansion of Krishna in the quadruplets.
That's such a good list. The one of the references that Prabhupada makes often, or our acharyas and Prabhupada, is Krishna's father. So Krishna appears in the mind of Vasudeva because he's pure. So the place of appearance of Krishna is or Vasudeva is in a pure place, or the Vasudeva state. That's indicated directly in the purport here. So you're giving me a list of 4. There probably are others, but nothing comes to mind. But you did a good job covering the 4.
The other question I had was, there was one line in the purport by Prabhupada where he mentioned some living beings are expanded from the superior energy of the Lord, and some living beings are expanded from the inferior energy.
No, living entities aren't expanded by the inferior energy.
Yeah,
They're para.
That's why I was confused by that.
Well, the bodies, yes, but the soul, no. Living entities. So then, if you, I don't recall reading it, but if it's there, it's not referring to the soul. Living beings, in that case, is referring to the coverings.
Thank
Krishna Maharaj, there is one online question.
Already.
Yeah, by Amani Radha Mataji. Guru Maharaj, how through knowledge the detachment happens?
How what?
How through knowledge the detachment happens?
How through knowledge detachment happens.
Could you please elaborate more about this
Okay,
point?
sure. What's knowledge? What is knowledge? What is knowledge? One way of defining what is knowledge is discerning reality from illusion, sat from asat. And if one has knowledge, and therefore one can understand what is sat and what is asat, then that's detachment, a detachment from asat. Why? Because it's asat. It's false, and it's now you see it, now you don't. Like a mirage in the desert, or anything that's a reflection of reality. The reflection, and then there's reality. So if you understand what is the reflection and what is reality, then you're not attached to the reflection. You're attached to the reality. And that's detachment. It's a natural, it's another set, it's the same answer, just stated very simply. Detachment is, like knowledge, detachment is no longer having affinity for something that has no substance. So the reflection has no substance. Simple. Supposing I have an apple, and then I hold up a mirror, and there's the reflection of the apple in the mirror. Looks just like an apple. No substance. You can't get any nourishment from the reflection. And not only that, you turn the angle of the mirror, and it's gone. There was no substance. It was a reflection. It existed as a reflection. So it's not false, it's just not what the substance is. So that which is insubstantial, there's detachment from the insubstantial. Especially if one is pursuing transcendental consciousness, or the goal of the Vedas is to know Krishna. So this is not in the category of Krishna. It's in the category of not Krishna. So there's some description. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. When I look at this verse, a beautiful verse,
Yeah.
it's like a poetry,
Yeah, it is.
and also it is as if you're looking at Bhagavad Gita summary. It's like starting from sacrifice, dharma, and then ultimately end with gatim, with ultimate shelter. What I'm saying is that like the yoga ladder. It's describing the yoga ladder. This is the first part of the question, just a comment. And then the other question would be, when we look at this in the perspective of the Vrindavan, resident of Vrindavan.
Look at this verse in respect to Vrindavan,
Yeah.
okay?
The resident of Vrindavan, most of them are not applicable because they're already, the goal is Krishna. For them, dharma, scriptures, jnana does not mean anything because they're always contemplating only on Krishna. I would like you to
Sure.
comment more.
That's the perfection of knowledge. The Vrijbasis may not have academic education, but they have perfect knowledge. And their perfect knowledge does not focus on Krishna as the source. Their perfect knowledge focuses on the loving object, Krishna. And you can go through the list, and similarly. So that which is transcendental means beyond the influence of the modes, beyond the touch of matter and matter's contamination. So now your question is, in Vrindavan, it doesn't relate to Vrindavan because they're not pursuing this or that or the other. So, but they are at the pinnacle of austerity, like the cowherd boys. and they're going through the forest, and Krishna's on the other side of a tree. They can't see him for a moment, and they feel, some intense feeling. So that's at a stage of perfection. More meditation is unbroken. The mind is unbroken, and then there's maybe by circumstance, it appears that Krishna is no longer visible. They go mad, and then Krishna is visible, or the gopis, and Krishna disappears, and it's just an intensification because of the stage of perfection of each of these items. It does apply. It requires a measuring stick or a way of explaining how it applies that's a little different than otherwise, a transcendental position other than the Brijvasis, because they're in a unique position. Unique position in the sense that they see the light, but they don't identify with the light being the supreme. They see Krishna, but they don't see the supreme. And they have the greatest of affection and affinity, but not because he's the supreme. So that's perfection. Yeah.
This verse was also talking about the people who do a lot of austerities or penances, and we're talking about meditation and meditation what. So how do we preach to the people who are yogis or who are into meditation about Krishna consciousness so they are not offended?
Well, yeah, it depends on the person or the group, but concentrate, meditate, mindfulness, mindfulness, that's meditation. And how do you preach to somebody that's into mindfulness without offending them? Mindful of what? Mindfulness of what? And if you don't have the what answer, then it's just mindfulness. And that's nice, because that's with detachment from the temporary. But then mindfulness of what? Then Brahman, or the impersonal feature. No, then it depends on the person how you would say, but there's which is more complete, the personal feature of your existence or the you just exist feature, because you exist. But that's without knowing you, and so saying that the absolute truth is a person, and so depends on the person and the circumstance of communication without offending. If that person starts then minimizing the personal feature, then the communication may shift. The mood may shift to something else, a different mode of communication. Because devotees don't just sit by and have people offend Krishna. Anything else? Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. Next class. We have a question that Krishna is the goal is mentioned in this verse, but we are too much attached to many things, Maharaj, and not taking full shelter of Krishna, although knowing that Krishna is the supreme goal. So, how we can go to that stage, Maharaj, taking full shelter?
The how-to question. Associate with, by hearing, in the association of devotees, and associating and serving those devotees who have heard properly and are more advanced than you are. And how do I know who's more advanced than I am? Everyone. But There are symptoms, and by those symptoms, then you understand who's fixed in transcendence or more than I am, and you serve those people. That the purpose of the serving is opening of the heart and pleasing Krishna, because Krishna then will help. Here's a nice person or a living entity that's been struggling and wants to become more uncovered, and so they're serving as best they can someone more advanced. Let me help them. There's no longer your effort alone; it's your effort plus. And that's the bhakti process. The essence is that Krishna can. We're inviting Krishna, and Krishna's inviting us. Please come to me. And we're inviting Krishna. Please take me. Please accept me.
Thank you.
Okay.
The portion. No, go ahead. Huh?